Thank you. The theme for last year's annual Maritime Park Conference was the Blue Economy, Concepts, Constituents and Development. As we commence our valedictory session, may I invite Admiral R.K. DHOWAN, Chairman, National Maritime Foundation, to present a review of the progress we made with respect to the outcome of last year's conference with regard to Blue Economy.
Dr. Jaishankar, former Foreign Secretary, Vice Admiral DHOWAN, Director of Maritime Foundation, Chief of Personnel, Admiral Chawla, Vice Admiral Deshpande, former Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Shekhawat, senior officers, flag officers, our distinguished guests from across the world, eminent participants, ladies and gentlemen. Last year, the National Maritime Foundation conducted the Maritime Park Conference on the theme, the Blue Economy, Concept, Constituents and Development. In order to ensure that the lessons learned and the recommendation made at such conferences are not lost and forgotten, when we take on new conferences and new themes, it was decided that we would take stock of the recommendations and the status of the implementation of the initiatives of previous year's conference a year later. The aim of this session is to review the recommendation made at the Blue Economy Conference last year. I will provide an overview of the Blue Economy concept, a status update on our Blue Economy enablers, the recommendations and initiatives, and the way ahead. Oceans are essential for life on Earth. They are rich in oil and mineral resources. They are the suppliers of oxygen, absorbers of carbon dioxide, a virtual heat sink, rich in biodiversity, which have emerged as global economic highways for transit of trade. With depletion of resources on land, humankind has turned towards the seas for resources. And there is a misperception that the oceans are an unending resource base and an infinite sink. Nothing could be further away from reality. Over the past 2 decades, we have witnessed indiscriminate pollution of the oceans and contamination of the natural marine habitats, resulting in a detrimental impact of climate change on the oceans. Studies have indicated that nearly 80% of all pollutants in the oceans emanate from land, and if the current rate of pollution continues, in a few decades from now, we will have more plastic in the ocean than fish. The blue economy has emerged as a new paradigm, and I would like to define harnessing the blue economy as economic development of our maritime interests by optimal utilization of marine resources and minimum impact on the environment to ensure sustainable development of the oceans. Soon after the conference last year, the National Maritime Foundation published a policy paper summarizing the recommendations. This was followed by a book on the blue economy, Concept, Constituents and Development, which was shared at various levels of the government and with different organizations in the maritime sector. I will now take on some of the enablers of our blue economy and provide a status update on the status of the implementations and the initiatives. First, the port development and infrastructure. India has 12 major ports and over 200 minor and intermediate ports. The cargo handling capacity at these ports, which is currently at 1,500 million metric tons per annum, is likely to increase to 2,500 million metric tons per annum over the next 10 years. The government's flagship project, Sagarmala, which is a port-led development initiative, is progressing at a reasonable pace. All the four sectors of port modernization, connectivity, port-led industrialization, and coastal community development have been given due impetus by launching about 150 projects with an envisaged investment of $60 billion US. We have greenfield infrastructure projects coming up at Kandla in Gujarat, Vizhinjam in Kerala, and the NIM port in Tamil Nadu. The aim is to have transshipment hubs, greenfield infrastructure for connectivity between major and minor ports, to enhance coastal shipping, and to provide multimodal connectivity to the hinterland by road, rail connectivity, as well as inland waterways. India has about 15,000 kilometers of navigable inland waterways, and of this, in the first phase, 4,500 kilometers will be developed as 5 major national waterways. National Waterway 1 will connect the port of Haldia, which is near Kolkata, to Allahabad across the Ganga River. National Waterway 2 will be developed in the northeastern part of the country across Brahmaputra River. On the west coast of India, in the coastal state of Kerala, we will have National Waterway 3. On the east coast, in the coastal states of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, National Waterway 4, and in the coastal state of Orissa, National Waterway 5. Work has already commenced on National Waterway 1 or Jal Vikas Marg 1 by dredging, development of the riverine terminals, jetties, and navigation infrastructure with an expenditure of approximately $170 million US. 94% of freight in India currently moves by road or rail. The development of the inland waterways would open up the sector of seaborne or water transportation and boost the coastal communication or the coastal shipping routes. Transportation over water, as we are all aware, is cheaper, safer, and cleaner. Moving on to the Indian shipping industry. India has approximately 1,300 Indian flag merchant ships, totaling to about 12 million GRT or gross registered tons. While 90% of our trade by volume is transported by sea, less than 10% is actually carried in Indian hulls. And this figure has actually declined from nearly 30% in the 80s to less than 10% today. The government has provided incentive for Indian registered shipping, as well as with the aim to increase the tonnage of Indian controlled shipping, and also provided a boost to the shipbuilding industry. India has a vibrant shipbuilding industry with 27 shipyards, and the government has accorded a special infrastructure status to the shipbuilding sector and also permitted 100% foreign direct investment into shipbuilding. But as enablers of our blue economy, both the shipping sector and the shipbuilding sector have not moved at the desired pace. Our current Indian flag merchant ships or mercantile marine, a large percentage of them are old and need replacement by modern container ships, VLCCs, as well as LPG carriers, since 80% of our crude requirement is transported by sea by import. Similarly, 40% of our gas requirement moves by sea by import. So there is a large requirement of merchant ships, but these will need to be modern. These will have to be environmentally compliant as required by the IMO. And therefore, our shipbuilding sector will have to gear up with induction of the right kind of technology to be competitive and to be compliant to the international shipping standards. An area I would like to specifically mention is that of warship building in India. We discussed that in some detail in the last session. And as you're all aware, for over 50 years now, our Indian naval designers have designed and our indigenous shipyards have built ships for the Indian Navy, resulting in our transformation from a buyer's Navy to a builder's Navy. Today, it's a matter of great pride that nearly 40 ships and submarines under construction for the Indian Navy are being built in Indian shipyards, both public and private. We now need to work on enhancing the indigenous content, particularly in the fight component for weapons and sensors, so that future warships and submarines can indeed be 100% made in India. India has a thriving fishing sector with over 250,000 fishing boats, 4 million active fishermen, 14 million part of the fishing community, and our annual catch is in the region of 9.5 million tons, which earns us $5.5 billion of foreign exchange. But that is only scratching the surface, since 90% of fishing in Indian waters is coastal in nature, whereas we have the entire 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone to be exploited. There is hardly any fishing in deep Indian waters, and it is said that fish in deep Indian waters are actually dying of old age. This is one of the recommendations of the Blue Economy Initiative, that we need to give a little more impetus to the deep sea fishing sector, and the government has formulated an integrated national fisheries action plan with a focus on deep sea fishing as well as conservation of the natural marine habitat. This would open up opportunities for deployment of deep sea fishing trawlers, which can later then be built in our own shipyards and boatyards across the country. It will open up the sector for deployment of processing platforms, setting up of processing zones, and lead to the community, coastal community development and skill development for the fishermen in our coastal areas. India has approximately 1,300 islands and islets. As part of the Andaman and Nicobar group in the Bay of Bengal, and the Lakshadweep group in the Arabian Sea and islands of the west and east coast of India. The Government of India has prepared a comprehensive island development plan taking into account aspects of security, economic sustenance, environment preservation, social and cultural sustenance. The aim is to have greenfield infrastructure projects with zero carbon footprint and promote controlled ecotourism. This sector has seen some progress with plans for development of greenfield infrastructure in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands, and this is being pursued by the NITI Aayog. This will open up a host of opportunities for development of cruise terminals, marinas, resort, and provide a boost to marine-based cruise tourism in the country. Setting up of additional port infrastructure in our Andaman and Nicobar Islands will also enhance the seaborne connectivity and cruise tourism opportunities with our other littoral neighbors in the Bay of Bengal, which is the largest bay in the world, and also with our ASEAN neighbors. India has pursued maritime cooperation with specific focus for enhancing the blue economy with our littoral neighbors, particularly with the countries of the Indian Ocean Rim Association. The countries of the IORA have embraced the concept of the blue economy, and India held the dialogue, the Blue Economy Dialogue at Goa in August 2015. This was followed by the ministerial level conference at Mauritius in September 2015, where the Blue Economy Declaration was adopted by the countries of the IORA. India has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Bangladesh on the blue economy. And in the recently signed Delhi Declaration between ASEAN and India, it was decided to explore the opportunities for harnessing the blue economy, and it was also agreed upon to examine avenues for conservation of ocean resources in the Indian and the Pacific Oceans. We can therefore see that there are an ocean of opportunities for harnessing the blue economy. The challenge, however, is to ensure that these are greenfield infrastructure projects with a minimum impact on the environment. We need to ensure sustainable development of the oceans in accordance with the strategic development goals or the sustainable development goals, and India has submitted its voluntary national review report to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on 19th of July 2017. We will now have to pursue the sustainable development goals, which range from reduction of pollution to conservation of the national marine habitat in accordance with a very stringent schedule. One of the major outcomes and follow-up actions since the last conference was a report prepared by the National Maritime Foundation, clearly outlining the national level policy recommendations for implementing the Blue Economy initiatives. This was shared with the government as well as with the NITI Aayog. As I mentioned yesterday, the seas around us are gaining newfound importance as each day goes by because of their linkages with the blue economy, and I have no doubt that the current century is the century of the seas. India has vast maritime interests, which are also enablers of our blue economy, and these have a direct relationship with the nation's economic growth. In conclusion, I would like to highlight some points for the way ahead. While some headway has been made towards implementation of the Blue Economy initiatives, a lot is yet to be achieved. The United Nations document Transforming Our World 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 14 provide a template for conservation of oceans, seas, and resources. We now need to chart a national level maritime policy to harness the blue economy and for sustainable development and growth in different avenues of the maritime sector. The policy paper by the National Maritime Foundation makes specific recommendations in this regard, which have been forwarded to different levels of the government. There are a large number of agencies operating in the maritime domain, and there is a need to have an apex level organization to coordinate and integrate the planning processes of these different agencies to implement the Blue Economy initiatives. In this regard as well, the National Maritime Foundation has made specific recommendations to the NITI Aayog. In order to fully implement the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, of his vision of the Indian Ocean as Sagar, which is security and growth for all in the region, we need to draw up a detailed maritime cooperation roadmap with a whole-of-government approach with countries of the region to harness the blue economy. And finally, the Honorable Prime Minister has launched a dynamic initiative of Swachh Bharat or Clean India. We could consider extending this concept to Swachh Sagar or clean oceans. Oceans are common heritage of mankind, and India could take the lead for an international movement involving various maritime organizations to ensure clean oceans for our future generations. Jai Hind, thank you.